Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So I'm Olga. I'm head of communications at Taraxa, and we're very happy to be here at Boston Blockchain Week. We see people joining. So we have Stephen Pu, our CEO and co-founder, today with us to talk about this topic that might sound a little bit boring, but at the same time, it's very, very useful, especially at the days of speculation and crazy bull runs like we're today. Hi, Steven.
How's it going, Olga?
Hey. Yeah. So I think we can get started. Can you talk a little bit about your background and how you came to found Taraxa?
Yeah, sure. Like you said, it's really great to be part of Boston Blockchain Week. And yeah, so my background has been pretty varied, right? I think that that's really what's driving the vision and the goals of our project. So I was trained as an electrical engineer from Stanford, but I didn't really do too much honest engineering work. I founded a few startups in IoT and mobile healthcare, and I was also a strategy consultant. So I was a partner at Monitor Deloitte, heading up their innovation strategy practice. So my background has been sort of a convergence of two very polarized types of work, right? So one is launching small startups and working with very small organizations, very agile, very quickly. The other one is advising extremely large companies, right? So I think through that work, what I discovered was that the reason why large companies, very paradoxically, the reason why they don't innovate as well and they don't move as quickly is because they actually lack data, right? That doesn't sound like it makes sense, but they actually have less data than smaller organizations. And this is because the vast majority of the world's operational data or data in general, transactional data are informal, right? So people talk to each other, they make deals with each other, they coordinate work with each other. And that kind of raw firsthand data happens every single day, every minute, and it's not written down, it's not captured in a structured way. Small organizations and smaller projects with less stakeholders, these people, the participants, the stakeholders, are in the front lines, actually witnessing all this stuff happening. So they don't actually really need a lot of help to verify in order to trust that information because they're firsthand witnesses. Whereas you get into a larger organization or more complex project with lots of stakeholders with disparate and conflicting financial interests most of the time, they don't have access to that information because the vast majority of these participants are not firsthand witnesses of all this informal transactional data, right? So they don't have access to it because they don't trust it, right? How are you supposed to trust things that are not written down, or even if it were written down, you can't really verify it, right? Somebody makes a sales call and say, oh, we need to drop the price by 30% because we have these other competitors coming in, and there are whispers about how they're going to lower their price, come in, and these type of things are very difficult to verify, right? You have to be firsthand witnesses. So this is sort of a long-winded tale, which tells me that informal transactions, they dominate the bulk of the world's data, useful operational data, yet they're not really being leveraged. And the reason why, and the fact that they're not being leveraged is what's driving the fact that our organizations, our projects don't scale very well. The larger we get, the poorer we perform, right? And so that's why we designed and started Taraxa specifically to solve this problem, because blockchain systems are able to actually, they're not able to tell whether or not something's true, right? But what they're able to tell is the source of the information, or the provenance of the information, as well as the fact that after the data was collected or committed, it wasn't tampered with, so the immutability of the information. So these two things combined, what they do is that they actually enforce they actually enforce responsibility, accountability on the part of the data committing party, right? So if you can enforce accountability, the incentive to lie and commit false information goes way down, right? So that's actually very, very interesting. That's a very interesting core insight that led us to found Taraxa, because we believe that blockchain technology can add a lot of trust to this informal transactional data that was not, hitherto was very poorly leveraged by society at large, by businesses, by organizations at large. So we really think that, this is going to be a very, very big, this is going to be very big. And And this is a very, very interesting and I think a valid use of blockchain technology. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So turning to the topic of today's webinar, what does it mean? So what practical applications are and why is it important to talk about them?
Yeah, I mean, so I think we're all in the crypto space, and one of the topics that everyone keeps talking about who are in the space keeps talking about mainstream adoption, mass adoption, right? This is something we keep talking about. So, the crypto world is growing very rapidly, but it's still a tiny, tiny part of the world, right? I mean, there's a very, very good chance that if you just talk to people around you, most people might have heard about crypto, but they never held crypto before. They don't know what it is. They find it very difficult to interact with, right? So the crypto world is very small. So the idea is, how do you get it outside the crypto world? There's just lots of barriers to entry to a lot of decentralized applications that we're creating. So this is, building something that is very practically, can be very practically used and become very practical in the way that it drives mass adoption. I think that's really a very, very big topic that we're seeing today. There's a lot of growth within the crypto space, but they're all inside the crypto space itself, right? They're not really, going outside the crypto space. So I think this is something that that's going to be an ongoing focus, right, for people who are in this space.
So if we talk about those challenges that, prevent dApps from getting mainstream adoption, what are those and how can we tackle them?
Yeah, sure. I think in looking at this from several angles, right? I mean, I think first of all, on the demand side, right? On the demand side, we talk about the blockchain as a way to bridge trust gaps. Well, this idea of trust, right, is very, very poorly understood by everyone because it is so ingrained in the way we do work. It's so ingrained in our society. People don't really think about, well, what is the cost of trust? Right? Like, it's actually a very, very interesting concept, right? Like, how do you walk down the street, go buy something and trust that you're not going to get screwed over? I mean, there is a huge amount of infrastructure that goes behind it, right? To make sure that you don't get screwed over, that you do trust the system that you're working in. And trust, it's a very interesting concept because it's not well measured, right? People don't typically measure it. And typically in any sort of business environment, if you're not measuring anything, you don't know, how much it's costing you, and you don't know how it could be improved, right? So we need to start, on the demand side, and this is a massive, massive endeavor, right? It's not like one company or one startup can do this, but we need to figure out how we can drive the market to measure the cost of trust. Like, what is trust costing you, right? So if we can actually quantify that, I think demand will be much, much better, right? So on the demand side, I think there's not a great understanding of the cost of trust. I think on the supply side, which is innovators, technologists within the crypto space, within the blockchain space, there's still sort of people are still trying to figure out how to use blockchain technology. So there is a lot of misuse, right? There's a ton of misuse. There's rampant misuse of blockchain technology. I think most of the time it's very tied into speculation. So, people just use blockchain purely like, let's create a coin for everyone, everything, everyone's dog, whatever, right? And it trivializes the technology's true potential. So I think on the supply side, the space are in the zone, we're also responsible for delivering not necessarily the right type of information or the right type of, we're not communicating the true benefits of this technology well. So there's still a lot of misuse, and that trivializes the technology, and makes people who are not in the space become very dismissive of it. So there's also a huge chunk of it that's really on the user experience side, right? So blockchain fundamentally is an infrastructural technology, right? So the reason why it's being talked about so much is because it has this very core financial and economic aspect to it. It manifests itself primarily through cryptocurrencies. So that's why people are talking about it. But at the end of the day, it's an infrastructural technology that's very complex. So it really should not be part of the user's core experience, right? I mean, when I'm using a phone, when I'm playing a game, looking at an app, I'm not thinking about, wow, I wonder how I can interact with SSL or TCP/IP, right? Like, I don't care. No one cares, right? The end users don't care how something works. They just care about the benefits of, of this technology, right? So I think,
Right.
the in the communication part of it also, there's an overemphasis to bring the cryptocurrency part of it, or sorry, the blockchain technology, the complexity of blockchain technology to the surface, and surfacing that to the user, I think it's actually a very, very big mistake, because that kills adoption, right? People are not going to want to deal with all this complexity. And and I think a corollary to that is that when you actually start surfacing the true technological complexities of decentralized systems like blockchain systems, there's this you're asking the end users to actually shoulder a lot of responsibility, right? I lose my password. I'm sorry, there's no password recovery, right? Like it's gone permanently. No one in the world can help you. That's very scary, and that's not a user-friendly experience, right? So maybe some purists might say, well, that's the way the world should be. The most of the world, prioritizes convenience over other things. This is sort of a little bit extreme, right? So really, on the demand side, we need to measure trust better. That I think that's just sort of a macro thing that needs to happen over time. On the supply side, I think as a space, we need to communicate the benefits better, and not and over time, I think as space matures, we lower the amount of misinformation that we're communicating. And on the overall user experience side, I think we need to do a much better job at hiding the complexity and making things a lot more convenient for the end user. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure. It's interesting how people talk about hiding complexities under the hood all the time, and I think even MetaMask. So I think they hit their 5 billion users probably last week, but even then, like I think they talk about how users find their UX complex, which is for us crypto native people sounds really odd, right? Like what could be difficult with MetaMask, but people find it difficult, right? So how does Taraxa, how does Taraxa actually apply those principles in the design of the dApps?
Yeah, I mean,
And
since
what
you
are the
mentioned
dApps?
it, yeah, since you mentioned the complexity part, I mean, let's talk about that first, right? I think there are a few principles that we really abide by, right? So from the user experience side, our core principle here is that decentralized systems are here to bolster centralized systems, right? So a lot of the mistakes I think people are making today in the design of decentralized applications is to decentralize everything, right? And that you run into complexity issues, you run into performance issues, right? Decentralized systems are guaranteed to be less performance, slower, and just a worse user experience than centralized systems. So the idea is that what's really good about centralized systems? Well, centralized systems are very fast. They have excellent legal accountability. User experience is great. They're very scalable, right? I mean, we have massive centralized, digital centralized infrastructures out there that are working great, serving billions every single day, right? So they're great. But what's not great about them is that they can cheat, right? That's why we don't like them, right? They can cheat. They're a black box. No one really knows what the heck they're doing. So all you really need to do is make sure that there's a decentralized component to this overall application built in such a way that prevents the centralized systems from cheating, right? You make the critical mechanisms highly transparent and make sure that the centralized systems cannot cheat. I mean, as long as you achieve that, you have basically gotten the best of both centralized and decentralized systems. So when we are designing our applications, I mean, we definitely take that philosophy to heart. For example, our Marinade, our Helio platforms, there is a centralized component to it that acts somewhat as a notary, right? So it is witnessing a lot of the data that's being anchored into the blockchain, and it's processing information on behalf of the users. But everything is done in a transparent way because it can't fake the signatures, right? It can't fake the ordering. There's just a lot of things it just cannot fake, right? So what it can do is that it acts as this centralized interface to the end users and handles and hides a lot of the complex things that the end users don't necessarily want to deal with. And then so you have a really great end user experience without them having to deal with a lot of the complexities and the problems and the headaches, right? That are associated with decentralized systems. I mean, just to give you a few examples, right? So one of the things that people always wonder about is, well, private key management. Well, that's a huge problem for any sort of decentralized application, right? If you lose your private key, you're absolutely screwed, right? Well, I mean, how do we currently figure out decentralized identity, or how do we currently identify people? How do we currently identify people in the centralized world? Well, we identify people in the centralized world by their digital identities, right? Like you access to specific email systems, access to social network systems, access to whatever, like a phone number, something, right? Those are pretty good. Those are actually pretty good identifiers of who you are, right? So in our system, yes, everyone has a private key. The users don't know about it. It's stored locally either in their browser or in their app, or either in their mobile apps. But if they do end up losing it, for example, they flushed everything or they did something else, well, they can't recover that, obviously, but they can reestablish their identity through by signing in with their existing digital identities, right? Either phone numbers, emails, social networks, whatever. And these are things that can help to say, hey, we can't recover your private key that's lost forever, but we can recover your identity, which actually follows you through all these other sort of existing assets that exist within Web 2.0, basically, right? So we make a small compromise, and then we actually make sure that you are able to recover identity. You can't recover your key, but you can recover your identity, and you can establish a continuity of ownership based on a lot of the things that you're actually working with. So that's one example of how we're handling this in a way that makes it easy for users. I think the other aspect of it beyond user experience is that we're really using blockchain technology, right? This goes back to the misuse of blockchain technology. We're using blockchain technology for what's really, really good at, which is auditing, right? I mean, it's really good at establishing the audit log, holding entities, data commitment entities accountable for what they have committed, right? I mean, that's what we're really, really good at. So that's what we're using blockchain for. And because we're able to use that and leverage that to establish an audit trail and establish accountability and enforce accountability, then actually that's a really great way to build trust on a lot of this informal transactional agreements, informal transactional data that otherwise would be very difficult to verify, even if it were captured, right? So that's how we're using blockchain technology, and we really firmly believe that it's actually the right way to use it, and it confers with the right type of benefits. Yeah.
I think we could talk a little bit in more detail about Marinate, maybe, because I think it's a great example of how Web 2 can interact with Web 3 in the sense that Marinate can actually seamlessly connect to any app, whether it's a chat app or email or whatever, right? So maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, what got us starting, I mean, I think early in 2019 and 2020, we started building sort of two product platforms, right? One was one was an IoT-driven platform, Helio. The other one's Marinate, because we wanted to help to make sure both machine and human-generated informal transactional data and statements can be made trustworthy, right? So Marinate was made for humans, and the use case that we were initially seeing was actually in the construction industry. It was actually very interesting. So on a typical construction site, you get 50 to 100 change orders every single day. And what's a change order, right? So a change order is basically something that changed, right? That's something that was not in the originally signed legal contract, right? Like, and there are tons of these changes every single day, right? Timing changes, material changes, blueprint clarifications, blueprint changes. I mean, tons and tons of changes, right? And the vast majority of these things, they're not written down in a legal contract. They're not even written down in a project management platform, right? They're communicated purely through text. Sometimes people make a phone call. Sometimes people just send you an email or in chat, WhatsApp, whatever, and people do it very quickly, and they move on, right? Because in most industries, in construction, like in most other industries, timing is very important, right? So everyone's under a lot of time pressure to finish the work on time. So that's it. So I mean, you have hundreds of these things flying around every single day, and afterwards you run into a lot of confusion, and and even worse, you run into disputes, right? So someone will come and someone will come to you, and we hear this all the time, and and say like, hey, I finished building this south wall for this building, and another subcontractor will be like, this is not what we talked about, right? Like we got to knock this wall down. I said, well, crap, what do you mean? We just talked about it last Friday, right? Like, I don't remember that. It's like, we text about it. I'm sorry, I deleted my text messages. So I have 200 of them. I can't find it. And then that kind of thing happens all the time. And it's crazy how often it happens. And this is not like, I coded something, I'll just delete the code. Someone already built something, knock it down. That has real world consequences, real world costs, causes delay, frustration, and it instills mistrust into the entire operation, adds a lot of friction into business in general. So what does Marinate do, right? How does it help doing that? Well, first of all, Marinate seeks to capture the information in a very easy way, right? So the hold on one second. Sorry, there's a lot of noise on the side. Hold on one second. Sorry about that.
Sure. Yeah, guys, I just wanted to remind you that we will open up the floor for questions a little bit later. So you may start thinking about your questions.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm back. So the first problem that Marinate seeks to solve is how do you capture this information, right? So the world, it's not like construction. The construction industry has no project management software. It's lots of project management software. But everyone we go to, what they complain about is that people don't use it, right? Or it's very difficult to get most people to use it. If you think about a job site with 50 subcontractors, they're moving in and out all the time, right? They're this contractor's working here for 3 months, and he's leaving for 3 months and coming back for 2 weeks, and very transient. Even their team members are very transient. A lot of them are day laborers or hired just for a day or 2 days. So there's really no incentive and motivation to actually all get on some fancy platform. It's not like they're working in the same place for 10 years, same group of people. People are changing around all the time, so you can't get people to all use the same type of software. So it's not well captured, right? So the first thing that we did, the first thing Marinate does is that we integrate with email, we integrate with chat apps, with SMS. So you can just text somebody else. I can text Olga and I say, hey, we agreed that the wall is going to be like, I don't know, 2 inches to the left, right? And I CC Marinate on it, and Marinate sends back a link to both of us, and we click and says, do you agree with this, right? We just got a request for a commitment, for an informal agreement, and I say yes. I click on it, and then it goes to a web app. I don't need to do anything on a web app. It goes to it, and I'll just close it, right? And I'm done, right? Because what's actually happening on the web app is that it's actually signing that, it's just hashing the agreement and signing it and anchoring it into the blockchain, right? So the first thing we do will make it very easy to capture these type of informal agreements by integrating with the tools that people are already using. We're not trying to force people to use a new tool, because that's exactly what doesn't work. The second thing is that what we do is that we make things very clear, right? We actually add clarity into informal conversations. When I texted that to Olga, I mean, it's very likely that she and I have been talking about this for a while, right? I mean, there's sort of some conversation going on about this and that and 5 other things, and maybe some of it's personal, some of it's business. It's very difficult to extract out the information, and that's what really leads to a lot of the confusion as well. So by extracting it out, we're saying, hey, we're going to add a mini milestone and clarify this specific it's a specific conclusion that we have reached within our larger conversation. It's this part of it. Do we agree on this part of it? So it really helps to clarify that interaction, that transaction. And the third thing is that we make it highly verifiable, right? So because you can look on the blockchain, you can see exactly what happened when, who said what when, right? It's a perfect tamper-proof log of who said what when. So that really embodies a lot of our design principles here, which is that we're not changing user behavior, not getting them to get bogged down by the complexity of blockchain, and at the same time really solving a real world problem, because we're able to actually establish a who said what when, a tamper-proof who said what when. So our goal with this application is really to minimize the amount of confusion, delays, and also the probability or the potential to for disputes, right? So all of which are very, very costly and very risky. In the construction industry alone, for example, in North America, every single year they're spending over $24 billion to resolve disputes. I mean, that's a huge
Yeah,
number. And
that's huge.
that's a
That's
huge number.
crazy.
Yeah, and even that's an
Yeah.
undercount, right? Because most of the time they're only counting the amount of money they're spending on lawsuits and arbitration. Most of the time, people don't really want to go to court, right? Who wants to go to court, right? You can avoid it. So the actual cost is even double, triple, quadruple that number because most of the time, like I said, people just don't even bother. They said, oh, fine, I have to knock down a wall. That's like $2,000 the cost. I'll just absorb it because I know we're going to do more business in the future. I don't really want to make a big fuss about it. I don't want to get lawyers involved, right? I mean, these are the type of thinking that people have. So the actual problem, the cost is actually way bigger. And that's only in construction, right? We actually see this problem in a lot of what we call real world industries, right? In supply chain, in any kind of field repair, marine maintenance, lots of these sort of real world industries where time is of the essence. There's lots and lots of very transient stakeholders moving in and out all the time, with conflicting financial interests potentially, and everyone just no one uses these nice fancy project management software because they're in the real world, right? They're doing work. They're not sitting in front of a computer all day long, and information gets lost, right? Very, very easy. The vast majority of this type of information gets lost using formal transactions.
Right. Right. I just wanted to add that if you think about all those ERP systems that companies use, they are pretty much useless, right?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to use, it's hard to coordinate. And I think Marinade is a great example of how people can coordinate easily and verify information.
Yeah, I mean, just as
So
an anecdote, I mean, just something to share. I mean, when I was doing strategy consulting, I've heard this multiple times, but the first time I heard it, it totally shocked me, which is that, I was talking to this, Fortune 100 executive, a company executive, and he just flat out told me like the information in our ERP systems are wrong. Right? Just ignore that information. If you're going to do your project, collect new information, collect new data. And I said, you guys spend tens of millions of dollars building this system. Why is everything in there wrong? Right? Because like you said, no one likes using these systems because they're very tedious. They take a lot of time to do, and they're not sort of in their everyday sort of workflow, right? They're not part of text. People have to come back and re-enter it. They have to take lots of notes, right? And when it comes to making a trade-off, from a business perspective, the companies or the people on the business lines are always going to prioritize, making more sales, building better things rather than recording these things into the system. So it's a lot of these systems are built, but they're not really being used because they're very inconvenient. Yeah.
Right. All right. So I think we're getting to our last question for today. Can you talk a bit more about what Taraxa is up to these days? What can we expect from
Sure.
Taraxa?
Yeah, so we are going to be launching our community-facing test network really soon, and involving the community in hardening and strengthening and stress testing our test net, so that we can actually successfully deploy a mainnet candidate later this year. We're also in the process of creating a new crypto-centric use case. So this is something that I think we've come to realize, I think, earlier this year, is that all of our applications and use cases are not from the crypto world, right? They're actually just in like the real world, the off-chain world. And it's very difficult for our community members to really understand what it is that we're doing. It's been very difficult to communicate that. So I think we are a crypto project, and most of our community supporters are from the crypto world. So I think it does make sense for us to make sure that we are doing a good job communicating that use case, or communicating why we're building these things that we're building. And so we are coming out with we're going to be a crypto-centric use case where people inside the crypto world can easily understand it, and they can use it, and it's going to be of value to them. It's going to be its own independent use case. And yeah, so we're very excited to, we're in the process of designing it, and we're going to roll that out later this year as well. And yeah, we're very excited about that. So we actually have something to engage with our crypto community members.
Cool. Great. I think we have some questions here. If you don't mind, maybe I'll just read one.
Yeah, I see one. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, do you want to answer it?
Yeah. So this question, yeah, I mean,
so
yeah. So from Greg, how does the platform prevent captured incorrect agreements during negotiation proposals? So we're going to answer this right now. So the like I said before, the system doesn't understand the content of the agreements, right? I mean, it's impossible. Like I can commit an agreement like Olga owes me $100 into the blockchain. Like, how is the blockchain going to know if that's true or not? There's just no way, right? It's impossible for it to know. What our system guarantees is not veracity, right? So there's no way that any kind of system can make veracity guarantees to the information being committed to it. All systems are basically garbage in, garbage out, right? So, but it does make guarantees on provenance, which is that I definitely made that statement. And the second thing is it makes guarantees on immutability, which is after I committed that statement, it wasn't altered. So yeah, I am free to actually enter a statement into it and say, hey, Olga, you owe me $100, right? So what is preventing that? What is going to mitigate, the impact of false statements? Well, first of all, there's no way Olga's gonna sign that, right? She's not gonna cryptographically sign that statement because she doesn't owe me $100. That's just wrong, right? She's not going to sign it. So this is like committing to the blockchain, and I say Olga owes me $100 and it only has my signature on it. So that's not an agreement, right? That doesn't make any sense. So the second thing is that even if Olga accidentally signs it, this is a record keeping application, right? We're not really here to enforce anything. Right? It's not like the blockchain is going to show up in front of your door and be like, "Oh, go pay up," right? That's not going to happen, right? So if there's some dispute, our system acts as a record to help facilitate the quick resolution of this dispute, right? So maybe Olga accidentally signed it, and she's like, "Oh, I don't owe you money." Well, no, it's on the blockchain right here. And Olga say, "Look, I made a mistake, right? I have some other records that can corroborate or disprove the fact that I owe him $100. There's no other evidence." Blah, 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 right? So this is acting as a way to really lower the amount of confusion, lower the amount of delays, lower the probability of disputes, right? That's what we're really here for, right? I mean, if you talk to any lawyer, right, any lawsuit, at the beginning of the lawsuit, these legal teams tend to spend weeks, if not months, to establish a timeline of who said what when, who did what when, right? And the vast majority of the time, if you have a timeline of who said what when or who did what when, there are no disputes. There is no lawsuit, right? So most of the time, people are arguing about that. It's actually very procedural. It's very nitty gritty. And the larger the lawsuit, the more process driven it tends to become. So so this type of immutable record of who said what when, unfakeable immutable record is actually highly valuable. Not only in the context of resolving large lawsuits, but also in everyday situations, like for example in construction, where people are, I forgot, confusion. Maybe it can turn a 2-day long confusion delay into a half-day long confusion delay. And right there, it's adding a lot of value. So.
We have another question here. So this that's more about I guess your business experience.
Yeah, so this is from I don't know how to pronounce this name. Vladin.
This one, Vladlen, I think.
Vronsky,
he wants
like
to know.
Count Vronsky from Anna Karenina, maybe. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so knowing what you know if you had to tell your younger self what you do, what would you say? Well, that's interesting. Well, first thing I would tell my younger self is buy some Bitcoin, right? And buy some
Yeah.
Ethereum. I think that would be pretty good advice.
Or
Uh,
Doge. It's
yeah.
even better.
I mean, I don't know if this is like a more of a generic question, like just in life in general. I mean, I think every one of us has made quite a bit of mistakes we wish we hadn't made. But I think maybe within the context of this project, um, maybe one of the things that, obviously with every single startup, people, make tons of mistakes all the time. And the key is really to, how can you quickly learn from those mistakes and actually pivot into the right question, into the right direction. I think one of the things that maybe I would have told myself is that I would have recruited much more broadly, right? I think in the beginning of our project, I was exclusively looking at the U.S. and also the Silicon Valley, really to build my team. But it was not really the best the best tactic, because Silicon Valley talent is highly competitive, and in fact, because there are all these monopolies here, right? That it's actually, and humans are naturally risk averse, right? It's actually very, very difficult to find a large quantity, a large group of highly committed team members, if you only look here. So looking at today, our team is very global. I mean, we have lots of team members in Eastern Europe, South America, and we have also some team members in Asia. I mean, our team is very distributed and it's just everywhere. So um, I think I probably started this project, although I believed in the power of blockchain. I think back in 2018, when I was thinking about building a team, the thinking is still not distributed enough, right? Still very sort of centralized thinking. So how we adopted this tactic of recruiting globally and actually building up a decentralized team or distributed team much more quickly, I think we could have made progress much faster, right? I think what really drove us to actually build a highly decentralized team was actually COVID, right? So that's at least one positive thing that came out of COVID. Was that starting last year, we
Well,
started
so you
very
did.
aggressively, started to recruit people, because we didn't need offices anymore, right? We got rid of our office, and like, what's the point of recruiting people in one specific geography if we're not going to see each other anyway, right? So that's when we started really aggressively expanding our team beyond just Silicon Valley, and it's paid off handsomely. I mean, we have amazing team members everywhere, and I think we're growing and we're moving forward much more quickly and much more effectively than we had before. So I think that's another
Mhm.
very critical learning that I would have maybe told myself, my younger self from 2-3 years ago, maybe. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hopefully that's what you're looking for, Vronsky. I'm not really sure exactly what type of answer you're looking for. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's happy. Before we wrap this up, I think I'm going to ask you one last question.
Sure.
So we partnered up with Chainlink last month, and I just want you, if you could talk a little bit about that, and maybe about more partnerships,
Yeah.
recent, upcoming, or present.
Yeah, so I think we integrated with Chainlink timestamp Oracle. So that was actually a very interesting thing, because I think we because we're building we're building these audit trails, right? So timestamps actually are very, very important, because there are certain informal contractual terms that are time dependent, right? Like service level agreements, like I have to deliver this at by certain time, or I'm going to pay you back once a month, or even when there are no specific contractual time dependent contractual terms, timing is also very important when it comes to accountability, right? So for example, like I'm working with 3 contractors, and their work is very, very interdependent, and I decided to make a big change, and I talked to 2 contractors today, and I waited another week to talk to the third contractor, and as a result, the entire project is not going to be completed in time. And that's really my fault, right? Because I did not communicate this in a timely fashion, or at least at the same time, to all three contractors, right? So, I mean, that's an example where timestamps are useful even when it's not part of the contract, where people can clearly see, look, you're the guy who screwed up, right? The employer, you're the guy who screwed up because you didn't communicate it. There's too much gap, right, between the communication. That's what's causing the delay in the project. So timestamps are very important, right? But I think what is not really natively supported by most blockchain systems is blockchain doesn't really have a native understanding of time, because I think for blockchain systems, ordering had always been a lot more important than time, right? Time can tell ordering, but ordering itself is a lot more important than just time, this concept of time. So we needed a reliable source of time when obviously Chainlink is the Oracle, decentralized Oracle today in the market. I think they were very interested in this project as well, this integration as well, because they hadn't really done anything related to timestamps before. I think the vast majority of their traffic right now, the use cases have been providing price quotes into DeFi, right? Mm-hmm. And so this idea of actually having something that is actually off chain and not finance related but operationally related was very, very exciting for them. So yeah, so I mean that's how we came about actually working with them on this, and the same principles apply, right? I mean how they build oracles for other types of off-chain data sources, the same way that they would do it for timestamps. For example, they would get various different sources of time from from the National Institute of Standards and Technology, from NIST, from laboratory in this cesium clock from Colorado or whatever. There are a lot of time servers. Apple, Microsoft, Google have their time servers. So you have a variety of source of time servers, and then they people come, they quote a specific time upon request, and then you can just you can get it. I mean, there are some technical approaches, like do we want to do a heartbeat that are just recorded into the blockchain, or do we want to have it being a request model? So that's still up for debate. But overall, I think it's a very exciting integration for us to make, and I think Chainlink also finds it quite exciting. We will, we're constantly doing business development, obviously, for our Marinate as well as our Helio platform, and we will be announcing them later as we actually get. Actually, what's really preventing us from making a lot of these announcements is really that our customers, we all have NDA contracts, right? So I think in crypto, it's very interesting because a lot of collaborations are, unfortunately, very perfunctory. They're not really real collaborations. So it doesn't matter if someone says something and just like no one cares. It's not real business anyway. Or if it's like actually in crypto, then everything's decentralized and very transparent. So there's no need for any sort of NDAs or legal contracts. So people announce it anyway. So I think within the crypto community, people are really used to seeing lots of announcements, lots of partnerships all the time. But when you get into the real business world, like, your customers typically don't want their competitors to know what they're doing, right? I mean, that's pretty clear. Like, it's not easy for us to get our customers to agree to disclose that they are working on something, right? So we are continuously communicating this with our customers, and we will be releasing more of this information later on. And so please be on the lookout. But like I said, instead of trying to communicate these non-crypto native use cases, I think we are very aggressively pursuing crypto native use cases so that the crypto community can actually engage directly and use these things directly and make it useful within the crypto ecosystem. So I think that would be an excellent anchor and actually entry point for our entire community to get a much better understanding of what exactly it is we're doing, right? This whole idea of tracking formal transactions is not, I have to admit, it's not an easy concept to understand. So we have to make it much more viscerally real and tangible, I think, to our community members. So that's what we're working on. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. I think we're done for today. Have all the questions answered. Thank you so much, Steven, and we hope everyone enjoyed Boston Blockchain Week. I think it's the last day today, so lots of conferences this week. Ethereal Summit was yesterday, and I think everyone is very excited. Please follow us on social. We have a big announcement coming up next week. And just if you have any questions for Steven, he's always there on Twitter. Just ask. Thank you, Steven. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, Olga. And thank you everyone for coming. Bye.
Bye, guys.